welcome back to my channel. So it's been a little bit since I last uploaded a video. I've been very busy with my orders, so I haven't had a chance to record lately. The last couple of days I've actually taken some time just to spend time with my kids and family, just take a little break from it all and live more of a normal life. So I decided today I'm going to try to do a quick little tutorial on how to do hand lettering without having a Cricut. I've had a few of you guys ask about how to do so if you don't own a Cricut or any type of cutting machine. So I'm going to try to show you guys how to do that, two different ways that I've done it before I got a Cricut Explore. Before we get into that, I want to say we are at 500 subscribers, a little bit over 500 now, and I'm so excited about that. So thank you guys so much for that. Thank you for taking the time out to watch my videos, to hit the like button, all the shares that you guys have done, the comments especially. Thank you all so much for just taking the time out to watch my videos. It means more to me than what you know. So thank you so much for that, and I'm so excited to keep growing this channel and see where it takes us. So let's get into the tutorials now. So I'll show you two different techniques that we can do for hand lettering without a Cricut machine. Now you will need a printer for the type of two different ways that I've done it, for you to be able to have it more like a stencil. Now if you don't have a printer, then you can try to do it by hand, and I would say you can use like paint pens instead of actually trying to hand paint it with a brush, because it's a lot harder that way. But if you get, of course, if you keep trying it and use a brush, you can get more practice at it and get better at that. But if you do want to do it a little easier and just quicker, I would say to use a paint pen. The kind of paint pens that I use, I just buy from my local Walmart. You can order them on Amazon also. These are the types that I use. They're the Painter's brand. I get the fine tip for the black, and then I get the medium tip for the white. I found that the fine tip it's actually the ultra fine tip for the white doesn't work like the black does, so I've always stuck to the medium. Of course your font's going to be a little chunkier though, but those are what I use. That helps make things a little easier instead of actually hand painting with a paintbrush, unless you want to keep practicing at that and getting better at that. Okay, so what we're going to need for our first technique is just some regular chalk and a ballpoint pen. Any type of pen will do, as long as it has that tip on it for you to press down. You can even probably use a pencil, as long as it's got a tip on it that you can press down. You'll need to print out your lettering of what you want on your sign. So for this first one, if you're using chalk, a darker background, like a black background, or a dark gray, a dark blue, any type of dark colors is what it's going to show up on the best. If you're using a white background, the next technique will probably work better for you. So we'll get into that next. But for the first one, we're going to use this black background with the chalk. I have printed out my text on what I want to put on this sign. Now if you have a larger sign than what you can print, you're going to have to cut out your words individually and piece them together until you have your whole sign of how you want it to display. So if I wanted this to be wider, I would need to just cut out, like put the text on there bigger, and just do individual words and cut them out and piece the whole thing together to make a larger sign. But since this is a smaller sign, I'm able to put all of them onto the regular size sheets of paper, the 8 by 11, and just lay them on here like this. So we're going to move the sign out the way. So the first thing you're going to do is just flip your paper over, take out one of your pieces of chalk. You're going to hold it, lay it flat down on it, and just rub it across the back of where your texts are. Just make sure you have all of that covered right where you see your text at. So all this excess powder you can just shake off. Put that aside. We're going to do our other one as well. Just shake off that excess. So now we have both of the backings coated with the chalk. So you're going to bring your sign back up that you're going to use and just lay your paper on there how you want the text, where you want the text to display at. Just make sure it's all going to be here how you want it to be. Okay, so now you're going to take your pen and you're just going to follow along to your text that you have. Basically just trace it. This is the main technique that I did when I didn't have a Cricut, when I first started off doing signs. This one worked the best for me because I'm not that good at freehanding letters. I can paint things like flowers and pictures and things like that, but I cannot seem to grasp hand lettering. So this is what I used before I had the Cricut, what I used to get by with that, so I could make sure my text would appear neat and spaced out properly instead of sometimes it not looking professional. Okay, so now when you move this, you'll see you'll have the text that you can follow along to with either your painter's pen, or you can hand paint the letters. Now all this excess chalk that you see will be able to wipe off. So I just take a damp cloth and just gently wipe over it after I get done painting my letters on it and my letters have dried. So don't worry about all that excess chalk that you see left over on here, because that will just easily get cleaned up. Alright, so I'm going to take my painter's pen and I'm just going to go over these letters and fill them in with my white. So one of the downsides of using a paint pen when you're doing the chalk technique is it tends to clog up or dry up your paint pen. So you may have to keep reloading it, pushing down on your paint pen to get more paint to come out of it, or you may have to go over it more than one time. So some of this I'm going to do with my paint pen, and I'm going to show you some using a paintbrush as well. So I just have a thin paintbrush that I'm going to try to use to do these other ones. So one of the things my dad taught me too about painting is if you don't have a steady hand, or you feel like it's your hand's just shaking too much at that particular moment, you can hold on to your wrist like this with your other hand and hold down on it, like push down on it like this. And then that gives you a little more of a steady hand to paint. So I'm going to go back and fill in where I did the paint pen. So while the paint pen makes things easier, I wouldn't really suggest it in this, when you're using it for this particular technique, just because it doesn't work very good. The chalk tends to just clog it up too much. paintbrush because that other one just was not cutting it for me. But this is still another thin paintbrush that I have. The other one just was a little too, the tip of it had gotten messed up a little bit, so it kept doing extra like messy pieces, so I had to just switch it out for something else a little bit better. Now with this technique, it might not be perfect still, your sign. If you do happen to see that you made any of your letters too big, or if there's any imperfections on like the edges of your, like the tops of your H's, or like right here on my S is too thick down here, you can go back if you have the same color that you use for your background and just touch it up. Just run over it, which we'll do that here in a little bit, and I'll show you guys what I mean exactly. And that just perfects the sign a little bit better, so you don't have all that excess, all those little errors that you might see when you go to look at the sign overall. So we're going to give it a minute to dry, and then we're going to dab over it with a wet cloth just to get all that excess chalk off, and then we'll go back and touch up around our lettering. Okay, so now we're just going to dab over it with a wet cloth to get all that excess chalk off of it. Now, if you are worried about your paint smearing by using water to wipe up the extra chalk, you can just use a dry towel or any type of dry cloth just to wipe over it, and that'll work just as good. So you can just brush over it with a dry towel is what I'm going to do. And just show you guys that you can just dust it off and get rid of all that excess. So we'll look at it closely. You can see it does have some excess right around there of the chalk, and you can just dust over it. And any imperfections that you do end up with, you can go back and correct. So don't freak out if you do smear some of your paint or any type of imperfections that may be around your lettering, because my lettering is not perfect. For any type of imperfections that you may have. And so I'm just going to dust over this whole thing just to go in and get all of that excess off. And it did smear a little bit right here, so we're just going to paint over that to fix it. So now that I have dusted off my whole sign, you'll see now it doesn't have all that excess chalk on it. Now we're going to take our black, the same black that we used for the background, which I actually use this Waverly chalk paint, what I use for most of my videos that I've done, most of my signs that are indoor signs. This paint just really covers well. So just find you a small brush. So I have a little small, one of these small like square brushes. And I'm just going to go back and touch up my pieces that, like my edges of my W's, and any edges that do not look clean, maybe where my bristles went out a little too far. You can just go along and correct it. So this is how it turned out. This is the finished product. While it's not perfect, definitely works as far as keeping your letters where you need them and your words how you want them spaced and so forth. So for this next technique, we have a lighter background, and I have my text already printed off. So what you're going to need is a pencil. You're going to need your pen also. So you're going to flip over your text, and you're just going to color behind it the same type of method as the chalk. Alright, so now that we have it all colored with our pencil, we're going to lay it on here how we want it. Make sure I have it centered first. Okay, and you're just going to take your pen, just as before, with your chalk. So you're going to take your pen like before, and just draw or outline your text. Just follow along to your text. So when you move this off, you'll have a outline. You can see there's a faint print on here that you can follow just like you did with the chalk. So for this one, I'm going to try to use my paint pen. I have my black ultra fine tip paint pen. So basically I can just go along and follow along to my outlines that I have left. So I'm just going to go back and make this a little more bold. Alright, so here's the finished product. So you'll see that method is a lot easier to use, and the lettering looks a lot better on that as well. Alright y'all, so that is it for my video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found these techniques to be helpful. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and be sure to hit that subscribe button if you have not already done so, and I will see you guys on the next video.